How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with The Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Day of the Dead, the TV series on SyFy. This is Season 1, Episode 7, and this one's entitled Their Evil Was Our Evil. This is from November 26, 2021, and is once again directed by Jacquie Gould. This is the director's third episode. And once again stars Keenan Tracey, Doheny and Natalie Malaika, and is loosely based on the Day of the Dead movie by George A. Romero. And overall, this show has good moments, and then the show has a lot of bad moments, and I continually see this show like stuttering to start, where it seems like it's almost got it. It seems like this show will be better now, and then it keeps going downhill again or doing something frustrating. And I do like the show's good moments. I do want the show to be good, and when the show is good, it's good, but then we get frustrating stuff happening. And this episode, it was okay, but not really where I'd hoped it to be. After episode 6, we were in the last half, the second half of the show, and I was expecting a nice defend the base style thriller. How do you build up the Paymart? How do you make it a survival place? But overall, the fact is, there's just not too terribly many zombie moments in this show. A lot of people criticize, some of the Walking Dead seasons for being a lot of drama without zombies, and in turn, later on, they, how they'd always have multiple plot lines. They'd always make sure at least one of those plot lines had something to do with zombies. This one, you get a guy shooting a walker from the roof, and you also do get a scene with Bub towards the end. But other than that, maybe I'm missing something, but I can't really think of too many zombie scenes from this episode. So it's mainly drama, and not all the drama was great. Some of it's fine, and I do like seeing the characters bounce off each other. I really am glad they're all in one place. But some of the drama seemed a little TV drama, where characters get overly mad at each other way too quickly. And yeah, a lot of traumatic stuff did happen, but it just didn't feel right. It felt a little forced in some places. In other places, it was fine, but yeah, it's one of those drama-heavy, zombie-light episodes. And I really wish they had found some way to incorporate more zombies, have them bang down the door and they have to fight off a few and put the door shut or something. Or there's even the character that works at the oil refinery, the girl, she has to go to her grandma's house in this episode, and they could have had a good prolonged zombie fight scene before she gets there. I just wish there was a little more zombies in this episode, but whatever. It's not near as bad as the show had been before, although fracking does come up again in this episode. But it's not as bad as the show had been before. It's just not as good as where I wanted it to be, and I really want this show to be a lot better than it is, and it does have its good moments, but also its frustrating and slower moments too. I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few of the plot points, and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what this episode's about. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in. We open up with the funeral for the mayor's husband. They wrap him up and they put him in the dumpster and light him on fire so he doesn't come back as a zombie. And if I was one of the show's harsher critics, I might make a dumpster fire joke here, but I'm not going to do that. But anyway, the mayor starts to say something, but can't quite get her words out right. And Lauren, who had worked in a funeral home before, gives a speech, in honor of the mayor's husband's death. And they kind of pull this funny thing where earlier on in the day, she was going to do her first solo funeral. That never happened, but through all these, chance things, she is still doing her first funeral today, but now it's outside in a dumpster with someone who they never would have expected to die today, so it is one of those funny twist of fates moments, but Lauren does get her first solo funeral. Lauren goes inside, and her hand's starting to shake. It's the bite. Now, I thought when they said, oh, it's going to be nothing, and then, you know, they brought her to the Gray Mile, and they gave her some antibiotics, I thought it was, or, well, they tried to get her to take those, but I thought this plot was over. I thought, okay, she's bit, but she's fine. But here it comes back, and I think the idea is your body will try to fight off the zombies, and it usually does. But, you know, even if you do fight off a sickness, you are going to feel bad for a while. So her hand's starting to shake, and she thinks about taking that painkiller pill that she took earlier. But she decides against it, even though this would be a time when no one would blame you for taking a painkiller pill. She just knows what a slippery road that is, and she decides not to take it. But because she doesn't take it, she walks into the next room and meets the bride's father, the older doctor guy, and she finds that he has that cut, and because she still has the pill, she gives the pill to him, and, you know, it turns out to be really good she still had it. She stitches him up, and they two start to talk, and he says, look, I know you're mad at me, but this turning you in was what I was supposed to do. You know, you find out something illegal happens, you're supposed to turn people into the police. And he says, because I sent you to prison instead of rehab, you know, rehab you might have gotten out way too quick, and you would have been back on the streets looking for drugs, but because of me, you've legitimately cleaned your life up. So I really do like the show. It's taking a moment to argue from his perspective and make you understand why he does the things he did, you know? So it's really cool to make these characters more 3D and to see the world from his perspective. Now, after he passes out from the medicine, Lauren has a vision of taking the scissors, because, you know, she's stitching the guy up. She was going to use the scissors to cut the line, but she has a vision of raising the scissors to the guy's neck to slit his throat, but then she snaps out of it, you know, effect of the bite, apparently. This scene, kind of reminded me of Evil Dead 2, you know, your hand going out of control and doing its own things. So I'm kind of wondering where they're going to go with this, you know. She seemed fine for the most part, but in this episode her hand seems to be going nuts. Maybe she'll have to cut it off and replace it with a chainsaw. That would be fun, but who knows. But anyway, we move on to Cam and Luke. Cam and Luke used to be friends. They're kind of being forced to be together, and Luke's dad just died, and Cam is trying to console him, saying, hey, look, I lost my mother, I know where you are, and Cam is like, or Luke rather, is like, oh, you're just making everything about you, and he's like, no, I'm trying to help you, and he storms off. He also meets his mother, and has quite a few words to say to her, especially about how she treated his father, or presumed father, and, you know, about the marriage and how she had tore it all up. And and Luke also mentions the affair that he found out about, which turns out the mayor knew absolutely nothing about. But Luke does have one more secret, but I'm trying to be spoiler-free, so I won't talk about this right now. We'll probably wind up talking about it in the next episode, but Luke does have one more thing he has to get off his chest. We also have the doctor and his wife. All the patients are finally stabilized. The two have a chance to really sit down and talk, and they seem to mend a lot of their differences. And he goes over, there's one of those little quarter vending machine that sells plastic jewelry, and he gets a ring out of it. He winds up having to knock it over and take the ring out, but he lost his real rings. He's like, I want to be with her, I've decided, and even if it's just this plastic ring, I still, you know, I want her. And there's this comedy bit where the redneck guy shows up and is like, you can't be looting, you can't do that, which is kind of weird, because they are openly using the store's resources, you know, so everybody's been looting this whole time, just, you know, not in a violent way. So this comedy bit didn't 100% work out, but whatever. But the doctor's made a decision. He does want to be with his fiance, so that's cool. There's a few other moments in this store. Speaking of the redneck guy, there's a scene where he's on the roof and he's like, I can't seem to kill them, but if I shoot them in the legs, that cripples them and definitely slows them down, which I thought was a really smart thing, you know. And I do like, you know, taking the time to analyze your situation and find out a solution around it, and the idea like, hey, we can't stop them, but if we shoot their legs, we cripple them, that's a really good idea. And it also, the sniper on the roof stuff does remind me of the Dawn of the Dead remake, the Zack Snyder one. Lots of rooftop sniper stuff there. Speaking of stuff that reminds me of the old movies, Lauren and Cam do talk to each other, and they're in this fake outdoor setup, a sort of patio display. Really did remind me of the helicopter pilot setup from the original Day of the Dead. So cool to see a throwback there. But the other big thing that does happen in the Paymart is we do get Pops making an apology. I shouldn't have done that. It was just a political campaign, and I'm really sorry. So good to see him maturing a little bit, and not all these characters are always going to be mean for all time. So I do like they're trying to make the bad guys a little more well-rounded. You know, you had the bride's father explaining what he did. You had Pops saying he's sorry. So they are trying to make more three-dimensional characters now, which I really do like better than caricatures. So we have that. But there are a couple plot lines that aren't in the mall. And first of all, we open up the girl who worked at the oil rig. She escaped the lab, and she runs to her grandmother's house and passes out there. And as she's passing out, the grandmother goes, Sarah, and that was the first time I really noticed this character's name is Sarah. Like, Sarah was the main girl in the original Day of the Dead movie, and it's super weird, like, you know, the actress is good, the character is good, but not the screen time. This character has gotten so much shoved in the back, you know, this character is really on the back burner, and even though she had cool things to do, like sneak around in a laboratory and stuff like that, it really feels like they've always put this character on the back burner, and then to realize that her name is Sarah, the name of the main character from the movie, that was just kind of weird. It's like, okay, she's the main character from the movie, you're going to give her screen time, right? No, and the thing is, there's been so much wasted time in this series, you know, if you wanted to fill the time, show us this other character that's supposed to be the main character. Whatever. It's also weird that they called her by her last name so many times, almost like they didn't want you to catch on that her name was Sarah. And yeah, I was really wondering why Lauren wasn't named Sarah, because she was the main character, but turns out this one is, so whatever. But anyway, she wakes up with her grandma, and the grandma starts to talk about fracking, because of course that's got to come up again. A little bit of a groan when fracking re-emerged after all these episodes. But she tells this story about how someone was smoking by a sink, and the water caught on fire because the fracking people pushed chemicals into the water table. Now look, I don't really have a strong opinion on fracking. It's, in my opinion, really too early to tell if it's good or bad yet. So I don't really have a strong opinion. But when you try to make an argument, and you tell some story like this, that the water is catching on fire, that just seems a little unrealistic. Now, maybe it is based on fact. Maybe this has happened before. But the story of the water catching on fire right out of the tap, that just seems a little out there, and I don't really believe it. So, if you want to make a compelling argument, don't make it seem fictitious, you know, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this happens all the time. I don't know. But anyway, they talk about fracking for a bit, and Sarah will eventually take out the mask and show it to her grandma, and the grandma goes, oh, I didn't think this was real. And she starts to talk about the history, you know, the original settlers coming in, meeting the Native Americans, and one of them gets sick and turns into that first zombie, and how they dealt with the situation, you know. So that story got passed down from the tribe all the way to Sarah's grandmother, and now we get to hear these zombie origin stories. So that's pretty cool. I won't go too much into that. I'll save that for you later, but yeah, it's cool that we get to hear the origin story, so that's kind of fun. But we also have a scene with Bub. Frankenstein leaves, and Rhodes goes, "Ah, why Frankenstein's gone, now I run the monkey farm." It's cool to see a reference to the line from the original movie, but in the original movie, Rhodes was so angry and over the top when he says this, that you can tell it's just some angry thought that your head spat out without thinking about it. And here, the fact that he's by himself and he just says it, it's just kind of a weird thing. But I do like the reference to the movie. Rhodes and Bub have a confrontation, and it basically turns into a not as good version of the confrontation from the original movie. And I am glad to see it there. You know, it did reference some things from the original movie, and I'm glad to get closer to the movie. But that being said, it's not as good, and I mean, like, the movie is like, what, under 2 hours or something? Here you had literally 6 episodes that you could have set this up. You could have built to a bigger and more epic version of this confrontation. It's just okay. And then, I don't want to spoil it, but Bub does something really, really weird at the end of this. He does something weird, and then it seems like they're trying to say that it connects to something that happened earlier in the show. And I'm like, maybe this editing is just symbolic. Maybe it's trying to show something that way, like, oh, hey, this metaphorically connects. But if it literally connects, then I'm like, what is going on here? We may be going into wacky, crazy land. I don't know. But Bub does something weird here, and I'll let you guys see that for yourself. But overall, this was an okay episode. It's just heavy on the drama. Not all the drama is great. Some of the drama is fine. But light on the zombies. And I really do wish they had expanded the zombies. You know, cut out a little bit of the drama that doesn't work. Give us more zombie scenes. I guess we did get Lauren's evil hand, so that was something. But overall, not the best episode. It's just okay, you know, and I'm hoping, and I keep saying this, I hope the rest of the episodes are better. I see that this show has potential. It just, despite its potential, keeps falling and keeps not being as good as it could be. And that gets kind of frustrating, but we're moving into the finale. Only 3 episodes left. I'm hoping it's going to be a good climax, but I guess we'll have to see. Overall, okay. Not the best episode, but not as bad as the show's been before. It's fine. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Romero Zombies Extended Franchise playlist, where you can find me talking about a bunch of other crazy Romero-esque movies, you know, the main movies, but also things like Night of the Animated Dead or Day of the Dead Bloodlines, you know, and you can also find the past episodes there. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Romero Zombies Extended Franchise playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.